The sky is quiet. But fear is loud. Two powerful nations. One long history of hate. Missiles fly, markets shake, families hide. But this is not just war. It's a shadow war. A war with no clear front. No safe place. No easy end. From secret attacks to global panic. From broken peace talks to rising fire. This is the true story of a conflict that could change the world. Israel and Iran. The shadow war of 2025. How did we get here? And where does it lead? Let's begin. Chapter 1. A History of Hate. For many years, there was no peace, not between Israel, not with Iran. This was not a war with tanks and soldiers on battlefields. It was a war of shadows. Spies moved in silence. Cyber attacks shut down cities. Bombs exploded in secret places, often with no one claiming them. Why? Why so much hate? To understand 2025, we must go back. Back to old promises, old wounds. In 1979, Iran changed. A revolution. A new Islamic government took power. They called Israel the enemy. They said it had no right to exist. Israel answered with silence and secret defense. Over the years, Israel attacked Iranian weapons programs, quietly. Iran sent money and rockets to groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. Both sides said, "We will never forget." Both sides said, "We will never forgive." In the 2020s, the world was already tense. There were new wars, new alliances. The U.S. pulled back. China grew stronger. Iran grew braver. It enriched more uranium. It built faster missiles. It said the nuclear program was for peace. But many, especially Israel, did not believe that. Israel watched closely. It prepared. It said, "If Iran gets the bomb, we will act." Then came 2025. On a dark night in April, something changed. An explosion rocked the city of Isfahan, Iran. It came from the air. People said it was Israel. But Israel said nothing. 1 week later, a rocket flew toward Tel Aviv. It came from Syria. Israel blamed Iran's allies. More attacks followed. A cyber virus hit Tehran's power stations. Iran's response? It hacked Israel's banking systems. People could not take out money. Hospitals lost power. Airports were delayed for days. Citizens asked, "Is this war?" Government said, "No." But everyone knew the truth. This was a shadow war. No soldiers on the news, no flags, no front lines, just fear and silence. Families in both countries began to worry. In Tehran, a mother whispered, "What if the lights go out again?" In Haifa, a boy asked, "Will the sirens come back tonight?" No one felt safe, not even far away. Europe was watching. The U.S. warned both sides, "Do not push too far." But the silence between Israel and Iran grew colder and louder. Chapter 2. Operation Rising Lion. It began before sunrise, before the birds sang, before the world woke up. In the quiet desert sky, something moved. Fast, silent. It was not a bird. It was a missile. Then another. and another. Israel had made its decision. The name of the attack, Operation Rising Lion. More than 100 missiles flew into Iranian airspace. They were aimed at secret places, military bases, nuclear sites, underground bunkers. By the time the sun rose, the earth had already shaken. In Tehran, people woke to sirens, loud, sharp, endless. Children screamed, mothers cried, fathers shouted, "Get away from the windows!" The radio said, "Stay inside. Don't panic." But people were already afraid. One woman, Layla, looked out from her apartment window. She saw smoke in the sky. She saw fire in the distance. She whispered to herself, "Is this the beginning of war?" Back in Israel, people watched the news with tense faces. The Prime Minister stood before cameras and said, "Our enemy was preparing a nuclear weapon. We acted to protect our future. We do not want war, but we will not wait to be attacked." Some people clapped. Others stayed quiet. In the town of Ashkelon, a man named David held his young son close. He said, "We did what we had to do." But what will they do now? Iran did not wait long. Its leaders called the attack an act of war. They promised to answer with fire. Crowds filled the streets. They waved flags. They chanted, "Death to Israel! Death to America!" Military trucks rolled out. Jets flew into the sky. The president of Iran said, "This will not go unanswered. We will make them regret this night." The world was shocked. In Washington, leaders met in dark rooms. In Paris and Berlin, foreign ministers made emergency calls. Everyone asked the same thing. Will this become a real war? Oil prices jumped. Airports canceled flights. The internet was full of fear. People everywhere felt it. This was not just between two countries. This could pull the world in. But what about the people? The normal people? Not the soldiers, not the leaders. What about Layla in Iran? What about David in Israel? They didn't want war. They didn't launch missiles. They only wanted to live, to work, to watch their children grow. Yet now, their cities were targets. Their nights were full of fear. Their hearts full of questions. Layla looked at her phone. A message from her cousin in another city. "Are you safe?" She didn't know what to answer. David turned off the news. He held his son tighter. He whispered, "Maybe they'll stop. Maybe someone will stop it." Chapter 3. The Revenge Begins. Iran does not wait. Not a day. Not a night. The answer comes fast and loud. At 2:14 in the morning, the sky over Israel lights up. One drone, then 10, then hundreds. Missiles follow, flying low, flying fast, heading straight for cities, for homes, for people. In Tel Aviv, the sirens scream, loud, urgent. People wake up in fear. A boy shouts, "Mama!" His mother grabs him and runs, down the stairs, into the shelter. Her heart beats like a drum. Outside, the air explodes. Boom! Boom! The ground shakes. Windows break. Alarms cry through the night. In the dark shelter, the boy whispers, "Why do they hate us?" His mother has no answer. In Haifa, an old man lies in bed. He cannot move fast anymore, but he hears the sound. He knows that sound. War. He remembers the wars of the past. He closes his eyes and prays, "God, not again." Israel's Iron Dome tries to stop the missiles. Boom! One intercepted. Boom! Another destroyed in the air, but not all. Some get through. They hit power stations. They hit buildings. Fires rise into the sky. The Prime Minister appears on TV, tired, pale. He says, "This is a direct attack by Iran. We will defend ourselves. We will not be broken." In Iran, people cheer. They say it is justice. They call it the night of revenge. On state TV, generals smile. They say Israel is weak. They say, "This is just the beginning." But not everyone is smiling. A young woman, Nargis, watches from her kitchen. Her husband is a soldier. He left 2 days ago. She hasn't heard from him since. She looks at her phone. No message. She looks at her daughter, sleeping peacefully. And she thinks, what will happen if this war grows? The United Nations calls for calm. World leaders beg for peace. But the fire has already started, and no one knows how to stop it. In Europe, airports are on high alert. In the U.S., Navy ships move closer to the region. Everyone is watching. Everyone is afraid. This is not just a local fight anymore. This is something bigger. And the people, they are the ones in danger. Mothers in bomb shelters, children hiding under beds, fathers far from home, tears, fear, hope, fading. Chapter 4. The world reacts. The world watches in fear. News channels show fire, smoke, broken buildings, crying children. In every language, the same message plays. Israel and Iran are at war. Leaders begin to speak. Some shout, some whisper, but they all say one thing: stop the war. In Washington, the U.S. president stands in front of cameras. He looks serious. He says, "We call for peace. Both sides must stop now, before it's too late." But behind closed doors, meetings happen. Long meetings. Secret meetings. One advisor says, "Israel is our ally. We must protect it." Another says, "If we help them, Iran will not stay silent." The room is quiet. Then the president says, "We must be careful. Very careful." In Moscow, the Russian president gives a speech. He blames the West. He says, "This war is not just about Israel and Iran. It's about power. It's about who controls the future." Russia sends more weapons to Iran. They call it defense help. Others call it something else. In China, the leaders stay quiet at first. Then one day, they speak. Peace is important, they say, but they sell drones, they sell fuel, they make deals in silence. At the United Nations, countries gather. Diplomats from every continent sit in a large hall. Some look tired, some look angry, some just look afraid. The UN Secretary General says, "This conflict must stop. Too many people are suffering." But nothing changes, because words are not enough. Not this time. In London, protests begin. In Paris, people march. Some hold Israeli flags. Others hold signs that say, "Free Iran." Everyone has an opinion. Everyone chooses a side. On social media, it's even louder. Fake news spreads fast. Videos, photos, lies. Who is the victim? Who is the villain? It depends on who you ask. In the middle of all this, families suffer. In Beirut, a girl named Rana watches the news. She says, "If this war grows, it will reach us too." In Istanbul, a man sighs. "I've seen this before," he says. "Syria, Ukraine. Now this. When will it end?" But some voices are different. Some say, "This is not just Israel and Iran. This is about the future of the Middle East." They talk about oil. They talk about religion. They talk about money and power. Old friendships break. New alliances form. And slowly, the world changes. Not with a loud bang, but with small choices made in silence. Chapter 5. Fear in the Markets. The war was not only in the sky, it was now in the markets, in the banks, and in people's pockets. After the missiles flew, the world changed. Fast and painfully. Oil prices rose, not slowly, but like fire, from $80 a barrel to $120, then $140. Gas stations around the world raised their prices. People looked at the numbers and shook their heads. In Cairo, a taxi driver said, "I can't work like this. How will I feed my family?" In New York, a woman said, "I used to pay $60 to fill my tank. Now it's $120. How can this go on?" Airports began to close. Planes were grounded. Insurance companies refused to cover flights over the Middle East. In Dubai, hundreds of passengers waited and waited. One man shouted, "I have to get home." But the airline staff just shook their heads. "No flights today," they said. "Maybe not tomorrow either." The dollar dropped. Investors got scared. They pulled their money out of stocks. Markets fell. First in Asia, then in Europe, then America. Red numbers appeared on screens everywhere. Banks told clients, "Stay calm." But behind the scenes, they were afraid too. People began to feel the pain, not just in war zones, but everywhere. In Sao Paulo, food prices jumped. In Nairobi, shops closed early. In Athens, workers protested. They said, "Why should we suffer for a war we did not start?" The fear spread. It moved like a virus, invisible, but strong. Even rich countries felt it. Germany, Japan, Canada, all warned of a global crisis. Politicians held emergency meetings. Central banks tried to calm the markets. They spoke on TV. They said the same words. "This is temporary. We will recover." But people were not sure. Not anymore. And while the leaders talked, the numbers kept falling. The prices kept rising. In a small bakery in Istanbul, the owner looked at his bills. His hands shook. He whispered, "I can't survive like this." In Argentina, a student said, "My future was already hard. Now it feels impossible." Chapter 6. Talks are broken. The door to peace was closing. Slowly at first, then slam. It was shut. For many years, countries tried to stop Iran's nuclear program. Through words, through deals, through diplomacy. They sat around long tables, with coffee, with translators, with hope. But now, the chairs were empty, the room silent. In Geneva, the U.S. team waited. They looked at the clock. They looked at their phones. No one from Iran came. Not a message, not a reason. Just silence. A U.S. diplomat said, "This is not a surprise, but it's still a tragedy." The official peace talks were canceled. The world watched and sighed. Tehran made it clear. There would be no more talking. A statement appeared on state TV. "We will not speak with liars. The West supports our enemies. We will decide our own future." Crowds cheered. Flags waved. But inside the government, fear was growing. One Iranian official, off camera, whispered, "If we don't talk, then what's left? Just war?" Back in Washington, the news spread fast. The president was quiet at first. Then he said, "We are disappointed, but we will continue to protect our allies." Behind him, military generals stood in silence, their faces hard and cold. People around the world lost hope. In Vienna, a journalist said, "Diplomacy was the last light. Now it is gone." In Tokyo, a teacher told her students, "Today we learn a new word, escalation." And in a small cafe in Amman, Jordan, two old men sipped coffee and shook their heads. One said, "When leaders stop talking, soldiers start shooting." The other replied, "And it is always the people who suffer." Israel was watching closely. Their prime minister gave a short message. "Words have failed. We must be ready for what comes next." More soldiers were sent to the borders. Jets flew overhead, loud and fast. People in Tel Aviv packed bags, again, just in case. In Iran, the nuclear program moved faster. More scientists, more machines, more silence. Western satellites saw it all. Deep underground, work continued, but no one could stop it. Not with words. For many, it felt like the last chance had died. One woman in Berlin said, "My grandmother lived through war. She always said, 'Talk before you shoot.' I guess the world forgot that." And a boy in Gaza, only 14. He looked at the sky and asked, "Will anyone ever listen before it's too late?" Chapter 7. Secrets and Warnings. The world is quiet, but it is not peaceful. Planes still fly. Radars still beep. Soldiers still wait. And deep underground, In rooms with no windows, leaders whisper, they plan, they send messages. Israel speaks first, not with missiles, not with bombs, but with words. A government official says on TV, "We are watching, we are ready, and if Iran continues, we will strike again." The message is clear. No peace, no pause. Just a warning. Iran answers fast. Their president speaks with fire in his eyes. "We are not afraid," he says. "We are not weak. If Israel attacks again, they will feel pain like never before." Crowds cheer in Tehran, but behind the cheers, there is fear. A woman on the street says, "Are we safe? Or are they just playing with fire?" In Tel Aviv, people don't sleep well. At night, they hear planes above. They hear the soft sound of distant sirens. David, a young father, looks out his window. He says to his wife, "They keep saying we're ready, but ready for what?" She doesn't answer. She just holds their baby tighter. In Iran, the military moves in silence. Trucks roll through the night. Missiles are moved to hidden places. An Iranian general receives a report. It says, "New Israeli drones seen near the border." He nods, but says nothing. He knows what could happen next, and he knows it will not be small. The U.S. sends new warships to the region. France sends diplomats. Russia sends weapons. China stays quiet, but watches everything. Everyone is preparing. But no one knows for what. In Jerusalem, a meeting happens at midnight. A top Israeli advisor speaks with the prime minister. He says, "We have intelligence. Iran is closer to building a nuclear weapon." The room becomes colder. The prime minister takes a deep breath. "Then we don't wait," he says. "We send another message." But this time, the message is not on TV. It is sent in secret to Iran, to allies, to the world. A warning, a threat, a promise. No one knows what it says, but everyone can feel it. A journalist in London writes, "The war is not only on land or air. It is now a war of nerves." He ends his article with one sentence. "One wrong move, and everything could explode." And so, the world waits again. People go to work, children go to school. But something has changed. Hope is smaller now. Trust is thinner. And fear is everywhere. At a cafe in Beirut, an old man says, "They speak of power, but forget the people." His friend nods. "They speak of war, but forget the cost." Chapter 8. The Bigger Picture. This is no longer just a fight between two nations, no longer just Israel and Iran. Now the whole region begins to move. And when the Middle East moves, the world holds its breath. In Lebanon, the night is quiet. But in the hills near the border, Hezbollah fighters are not sleeping. They check their weapons. They study maps. They wait. Their leader appears on TV. His voice is deep, strong, dangerous. He says, "If Israel continues, we will join the fight." And just like that, another front opens. In Yemen, the Houthis prepare. Their missiles point toward the sea, toward Israel, toward American ships. A commander says, "We are ready for the next order." And the people? They watch from broken cities, hungry, tired, scared. One man in Sana'a whispers, "More war? We have no strength left." In Syria, chaos grows. Militias move in and out of towns. Some support Iran. Some fear Iran. Some fight for money. Civilians run, again, from bombs, from fear, from a war that is not theirs, but still touches everything. And in Iraq, the streets are full of smoke. American bases go on high alert. Iran-backed militias shout, "This is the moment. Push them out." The U.S. sends more troops. Israel watches. Iran smiles. Because now, the conflict is everywhere. Back in Tehran, the government says, "This is the resistance. From Lebanon to Yemen, we are not alone." In Jerusalem, the Israeli army responds, "We are ready on all fronts. If they come from the north, from the east, from the sea, we will answer." The sound of jets fills the sky. Soldiers line the borders. People stock food. Again. In Cairo, newspapers use one word on their front page: escalation. In Amman, the king gives a warning. If this continues, the region will burn. And in Riyadh, oil prices rise again. Markets shake, airports slow. No one is safe from the ripple. But what about the people? Layla in Iran hears the news about Hezbollah. She turns off the radio. She holds her daughter close. She says nothing, but thinks everything. David in Israel sees the headlines. He sighs, "More enemies, more danger." He wonders, how long can we live like this? And far away, in a classroom in South Africa, a teacher writes on the board, "Middle East conflict, 2025. A student raises his hand. He asks, "Why are they all fighting?" The teacher pauses, looks at the world map, and says softly, "That is the hardest question of all." Chapter 9. A Dangerous Tomorrow. The world wakes, but it does not feel alive. The skies are quiet. But it is the silence before the storm, and everyone is asking the same question. What happens next? In Israel, schools are closed again. Families stay close. They check the news every hour. David walks with his son to the shelter. He holds his hand tightly. The boy asks, "Will there be more bombs tonight?" David doesn't know. So he says what fathers always say, "I hope not." But deep inside, he's afraid. In Iran, people line up for food. Supplies are low. Prices are high. Layla stands in line for 2 hours. She holds her baby in one arm, a bag of rice in the other. A man near her says, "If this war continues, we will have nothing left." Layla doesn't speak. She just looks at her child and wonders what kind of future waits for him. World leaders meet again. One summit in Geneva, another in Cairo. More words, more calls for peace, but no promises. Everyone talks, but no one acts. The United Nations sends warnings. The Pope gives a speech. Presidents tweet messages of concern. But the missiles, they do not stop. The fighting continues. On land, in the air, online. A cyber attack hits an airport in Dubai. Trains stop in Turkey. A power grid fails in Jordan. No one claims responsibility. But everyone knows. This is all connected. Some say this is just the beginning. A war that will pull in more countries, more armies, more lives. One reporter on live TV says, if this grows, it could become the biggest war since World War II. Her voice shakes as she says it. The studio goes quiet. But in the middle of fear, some still hope. In Tel Aviv, people light candles in windows. They say prayers for peace. In Tehran, a group of students writes letters. Not to leaders, but to each other. Letters that say, we don't want war. We want to live. A young girl in Gaza draws a picture. A dove. A house. Two people holding hands. She writes under it, one day, please. And now the world looks to tomorrow, not with joy, but with worry. Will peace return? Will someone be brave enough to stop this war? Or is this the start of something bigger? Something worse? Something we are not ready for? Because now, the most dangerous thing is not the bombs, not the missiles. It is the idea that war might be the new normal.